So, guys, I haven't done one of these in a while, but I just figured I have Dmitiri with me from Hull City Fans TV, who has not been put off by the prospect of talking to me non-stop for about 45 minutes, or however long we're going to wallow in the pity of the shit state that are Sunderland and Hull. But nevertheless, he's joining, and I just figured it'd be quite nice because we spoke before, had a nice chat, and figured we'd have a chat. So, anyway, Dmitiri, how are you doing both football and non-football wise?
I'm good. Happy to be on the podcast again.
Thank
Nice talking to you. Nice talking to a fan of a club that's in a worse state than ours.
Yeah, I'm sure that's at least consoling. However bad we are, we're not Sunderland. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, we're in a great place in the table right now, but we're not in the relegation zone yet, so that's good.
Yeah, well, and you've only got like a -5 goal difference. We've got like a -20 goal difference or whatever it is after the lovely hammering by Cardiff at the weekend. Less said about that, as everybody I'm sure will agree, the better. So my first question for you is, how confident are you in advance of Hull's guaranteed 3 points at the weekend?
I'm going to surprise you. I'm honestly not that optimistic. I'm honestly not that optimistic. I'm expecting maybe I was talking to my friend about who I'm going with, and I was saying we'd take a draw, potentially, hopefully, a draw or a win. But we're not that good, especially not away. We don't win away very often at all. I was thinking, if we can't win this game, then what game can we win? But that doesn't necessarily mean we'll win.
Exactly. I mean, a lot of teams are going to think of Sunderland in that mould, and for me, it's quite depressing that we've got ourselves to the stage where everyone, probably rightly, will look at Sunderland and say, if we cannot win this game, then what can we win? Because I figured coming, I mean, obviously you know yourself, both of us coming down from the Premier League, I certainly didn't expect both of us to be down the bottom again. I thought we would,
No.
I thought we would be at least top half of the table, but I mean, both Sunderland and Hull, but I mean, the last time we spoke to you, we obviously had two different managers. You had Leonard Slutsky and we had Simon Grayson. And you probably were sick of your life when James Vaughan scored after we constantly told you that how shit he was. But
yeah, I was going to say, I'm not that optimistic because you guys came to the case. He ain't got a draw last time we played you, so fair play. And we only scored a late equaliser in that game.
yeah,
we weren't good in that game.
No, I was pretty disappointed. I was pretty fuming after that we dropped 2 points in the last 10 minutes. But it's likewise. I would have took a draw before that game, but you know how it is when you go 1-0 up and you concede late on. It's pretty gloomy reading.
I couldn't believe it. I was fuming when we went 1-0 down. I was so angry. I couldn't believe it. I thought we might lose. I'm glad that we were able to take at least a point from that game.
I'll be pretty shocked, put it this way, Dimitri, this time if you don't take at least a point from this game. Truth be told, I wouldn't be surprised if you did. I wouldn't be surprised if you got all three. But at that point, you had Leonard Slutsky and we had Simon Grayson anyway. Tell me what happened, because as far as I know from the outside, you obviously had Leonard Slutsky who's gone, and then you've had Nigel Atkins who's come in. Obviously, off the pitch issues still haven't got any better as far as your owners are concerned. But what happened since the last time we met? It seems to have been a roller coaster for you, to say the least.
It really is a roller coaster because I think obviously with Slutsky we had some really good wind under him and we were scoring a lot of goals. But our other problem was that we could not, and we still to an extent we couldn't hold a lead. We could not hold a lead. We played Bristol a week before we were sacked, and we was 2-0 up at 60 minutes, and we lost 3-2 at home, and that was hideous. And we were about to win our first away game in the year away at Norwich, and we were 1-0 up, and we defended it all game, and we equalised later on. We keep on taking leads early on, and this is kind of continued with Atkins, but this is mainly a Slutsky trait, where we'd take a lead, and then due to poor substitutions or poor tactics, we'd just bottle that lead and we'd draw or lose. And it was just so depressing to go into a lead every week and think, oh, we'll probably lose this now.
I shouldn't really laugh because I think from our situation, we take a lead and then straight away we'll probably concede, and then we're like, right, how many are we going to lose by this time? As opposed to only 2-1, it's probably like 5-1 at this point. I can't remember the last time we took it. I don't think.
To the point where we were 2-0 up. We're 2-0 up and we're thinking they've got more chance of winning this than we do. It was odd, and I mean, Atkins surrendered a 2-0 lead for a 2-0 against Fulham the other week, but not been as bad. Like since Atkins has come in, we talk about him. We've had 3 clean sheets in our last 5 games. that's pretty good, but we're not scoring as much, so we can't seem to get it right now. Our balance, we were scoring lots under Slutsky, but conceding all the time. Now we're not conceding any with Adkins, but we're not scoring any either.
That's the thing. You can't seem to have both, can you? You've always got to be one or the other, isn't there? You can't. It's like you have to settle for being shite at one and good at the other, and then vice versa when a new person comes in. I mean, but has Adkins really done anything to change things? Because the question that was asked was, has your form really changed since Slutsky was sacked? And I'm looking at your fixtures, and the only win you've had, I don't even know why I'm looking at this because I know we're gonna end this record for you. But your only win, I think, over the last couple of months has been Brentford, if I'm right. So
Brentford 3-2 at home, yeah.
Yeah, so
we
I mean,
nearly bottled that one as well.
trust. I'll personally quickly before you continue, I'll guarantee if you go.
Solid.
Sorry, go on.
I think we're looking more solid. I think we're looking a lot more defensively stable. Like I said, 3 cheats in the last 5 games. I'm very happy with that. And I definitely feel more reassured with Adkins at the helm. You know, I do think we're improving a bit, but we do seem to be a little bit lacking going forward, as I mentioned. And I'm not sure our form has really kicked in yet. I mean, he's been here for a bit now, Adkins, and we're still 20th. So I think, I do think it's been an improvement on Slutsky, because under Slutsky we were just going into free fall, we were just conceding all the time, and it was just you got the feeling that Slutsky had lost the dressing room, and lost the players' confidence. But I think under Adkins, I feel more confident with him, but I don't think we've had any real improvement in form yet.
You mentioned that Slutsky lost the dressing room. What was that down to? Do you think was it just that his demeanour? Because he seemed to be quite an optimistic chap when I've watched him in interviews. I think when you played Villa on the opening game of the season, and he seemed to be a well upbeat lad, and you had a good result there. You played quite well, but obviously I'm looking at it from the outside. What was it that Slutsky that ultimately just didn't work? Was it his demeanour? Was it just tactics, or what?
With what I have to say with Slutsky, I was excited when he came in. You've got to respect his pedigree. You know, he managed the Russian international team. He won the league about 7 times with TSK Moscow in Russia. But I don't think and this is such a stereotypical thing to say and such a cliche thing to say, but I don't think he really understood the championship. And you're looking at Nigel Adkins, he's an experienced championship manager. He's managed it several times with different teams. He got Southampton promoted when he was in the championship, and he knows what's required to succeed in the championship. Whereas for Slutsky, this was his first time in English football, and his tactics just didn't really seem to suit it too well, unfortunately. And I feel like he was too maybe informal, maybe too relaxed. There was a rumour that the players had a WhatsApp group and he was in it, and he was all very friendly with them, and it just feels like maybe there wasn't that. Maybe he was one of them as opposed to being a
someone, cut above the players, so to speak, someone to be respected. I know what you mean.
Yeah, he wanted to be that authority, and he always came off as very friendly, and there's no doubt the players liked him. Whether they were able to fully truly respect him, and whether they were to his tactics, I question.
Fair enough. I mean, you do get some managers like that. You get some of them that Simon Grayson, I think, probably was a little bit like that for us, where he sort of wanted. I wouldn't say he wanted to be that mate as such, but he certainly. I think you could get the impression the players liked him, but I just didn't get the impression they were playing for him because obviously, as you know, we were struggling like mad, and we still are. But I just think whereas Chris Coleman gets that demeanour, he gets that balance. I think, whereas I don't think Grayson did. But as far as I want to talk quickly about, we can't talk about Hull without mentioning your off the pitch issues. What the hell's happened? If you can even think of a place to start.
Well, I mean, the thing is with the Alams is, since the name change, it's gone downhill, obviously. Just to, obviously briefly summarise that, we know the name change was put forward to change the name from Hull City AFC to Hull Tigers, and it was rejected by the FA once. They appealed it, rejected by the FA again, and ever since then, it seems to have really been Assam actually gave the club's run by EHAB now. Assam doesn't run it anymore. EHAB's his son, and he seems to be a lot more malicious than Assam. I do genuinely believe that, although his intentions were very, very misguided, I do believe that Assam wanted the best for the club. He wanted to reach a bigger market, and he would have invested heavily. But still, obviously, I'm incredibly happy that the FA did reject the Hull Tigers name change, and we are still Hull City. We're very lucky that the FA actually stood up for the club on that count. But ever since then, I think EHAB's been very malicious towards the club. Removing concessions for the only club in the professional leagues to not have the concessionary ticket pricing.
Yeah, I heard that. I was astonished. Sorry, I heard that. I was absolutely astonished when I heard that. The fact that their children have to pay the same price as adults as well. Or have I got that wrong?
Yes. Now, the thing with that is that the adult prices aren't necessarily that high. I think it's maybe like £20 for an adult. But if you're paying £20 for an adult and a kid, then that's 40 instead of like 30. And then suddenly, if you've got 4 people going, if you've got a family going, you're looking at £80 when in the past it would have been 40 to £50. And that, if you're going for a season, that makes a massive difference.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Just seems quite a cool thing to do. I don't know why he thinks that was such a genius idea when we're the only club in the professional leagues to do that.
But I mean, as well, you think from a business perspective that you would think, well, that's going to drive people further away from actually attending the games, and that's going to lose him more money. So I don't quite.
You're looking on a smaller scale. You're looking as well at kids. When kids go to these games, they like to get some sweets at half time. They like to get maybe like a hot dog. You're looking at all the little things. Less people going to the stadium. You're selling less merchandise. Kids aren't buying programs, etc. You're looking at it's just driving away the fans. And if you don't have kids going to football, then that's your future fan base. I first went to football when I was 7, 8. If it was in this climate, I might not have been able to, and then I might not. Like, I think a lot of children might not now, and then you're just losing future fans as well, and older fans who potentially can't afford the adult prices if they're retired now. It's very, very cool, and our supporters just are campaigning for the concessions to be reintroduced.
Like I said, I was astonished that there's no concession ones. Even if there isn't going to be concessions, you figured there would at least be like I'd buy an adult and get a ticket half price or free or something like that. Some sort of offer.
There's been no relent on it. Even in the FA Cup, you think they might do. You'd think in the FA Cup, tickets are cheap. We went to Blackburn away, and the tickets were £12 for an adult and I think £2 for under 18. At Hull City, we've got an FA Cup game against Nottingham Forest coming up, and it's just £10 for everyone. They won't even relent for cup games, and it's not even like a tenner for an adult, etc. It's very, you get the feeling it's very petty. And since then, we had Steve Bruce for quite a while, who obviously managed Sunderland. He was a very popular figure in Hull, getting us promoted, getting us European football, getting us to an FA Cup final. And we had him for 4 years, I believe, and he left due to an argument with EHAB. And since then, since his sacking at the beginning of the Premier League season last year, we've had 4 managers since that time. Which is astonishing that we've gone from stability with Steve Bruce for 4 years at the helm to 4 managers coming through the door. It's crazy the amount of. I'm struggling to get my head around it. It's Nigel Adkins now managing now. It's just
think.
So while I think Slutsky was right, it's a shame that we've got another new manager in.
Well, put it this way, you're trying to out Sunderland by looks of it, because we've been historically known for constant manager changes. I mean, as far as you mentioned with Steve Bruce, one thing I was quite impressed with, I know that we're going further and further away from the game, guys, but I'd imagine we'd probably like to dive as further away from that as possible, but we'll probably mention it again in a bit. But one thing I was impressed about with Steve Bruce was that you didn't sack him when you got relegated. You gave him the chance to bring you back up again. And albeit by the playoffs, although you could argue you should probably be finishing in the top 2 that year in particular, you still came back up, though, didn't you?
We love Steve Bruce, Hull City fans. But I think a lot of Hull City fans are bitter about that season, and we were loyal to him. We gave him that. I'm glad that the Allams gave him that chance, and that's because the thing is that season, that squad is probably the best squad Hull City had ever had. Obviously, with us only first getting into the Premier League back in 2007, and with the money that the Allams actually gave to Steve Bruce that season, you can't criticise them for the money they gave him to spend, and we should have been nowhere near the relegation zone. We sacrificed our Europa League campaign.
Yeah, I remember that. We
obviously qualified for that. We were knocked out in the playoffs because, well, it was never officially stated, but you get the feeling it was so we could concentrate on the league, and then we got relegated, and I don't think he got us promoted again, but it probably should have been for the playoffs. We probably should have gone up automatically, and I'm glad we gave Steve Bruce that chance to get us up again, because he did get us up, but then he got us up and left after an argument with EHAB. So.
And obviously the rest is there from history for plain to see. I mean, Steve Bruce has got a very. Sunderland fans remember Steve Bruce less fondly. Personally, myself, I don't. I think Bruce did all right. I think if you look at the facts themselves, I think he tailed off a bit towards the end. But there was an argument when we sold Darren Bent, we sold Jordan Henderson, and since then it was pretty much spent on the likes of Craig Gardner, Seb Larson, Kieran Westwood, Ji Dong Wong, players like Connor Wickham as well. That was meant to be a big signing at the time. But I felt that towards the end we were struggling to score goals, but I don't think the team we had then would have got relegated because I felt we were still creating chances enough, and I felt we would get enough results to stay up. I don't think Steve Bruce did as bad as what some Sunderland fans claimed he did. Some of the stuff he said since leaving Sunderland hasn't been rightly not gone down very well, but nevertheless,
himself to you.
Yeah. Well, I thought, like I said, the time period where I got into football, so you take my football knowledge with a pinch of salt compared to everyone else. Steve Bruce was manager of Sunderland when I was getting into football, so I was sort of like, well, I didn't get the hate that he was getting, and compared to some managers we've had since, you know, it couldn't have been that bad. But it's got to the point where we think, oh well, Steve Bruce was all right because we got worse. But yeah, like I said, I didn't think Bruce did as bad as everyone else thought he did. But I mean, well, I was going to ask you on the subject as well. We mentioned ex-manager. Let's talk about ex-players because my memory right, you've got 3 ex-Sunderland players at the top of my head in your squad. Whether they're fit or not is a different question. You've got Fraser Campbell, Seb Larson, and David Myler. We mentioned, I think, a couple of them last time, but let's go into them again because why not? Let's tell you, who do you want to start with? Who's made the most appearances this year?
Who's made the most appearances? Well, we can go with our most appearances as a player at the club right now. Our longest serving player, which is David Myler. He's our longest serving player now. He's been with us since, I don't know when we signed him actually. I think it was, what year was it? Do you remember when we bought him off you?
That one I'm not sure. I would imagine, I think it was probably 12-13. I think when Bruce first went to you.
In which case, I think he's been here for about six, 7 seasons now, I believe. So he's really. I think a lot of fans like him. He seems like he was in the away end with us for Leeds United away. He really seems to care a lot more than a lot of players do, and he does always try his best. But you do sometimes feel like his ability's lacking a little bit. But he had a brilliant performance against Sunderland early on in the season when he came on as a substitute. That was an incredible performance. He dragged that team to a draw, and he even scored the goal himself. I was astonished that David Myler was doing this incredible one-man performance.
Well, again, Sunderland, I suppose it shouldn't be that much of a surprise, but I know I get where you're coming from.
I'm sure he was maybe trying to get back at Sunderland because I know he might not have. I heard he didn't like it there.
Yeah, some Sunderland fans really they've got I think I would safe to say it's a lukewarm at least. I can't speak for every Sunderland fan. I don't really have any particular feelings towards David Myler, but I'm just looking actually statistically. I was right. It was 8th of November 2012. Apparently that Myler was reunited with Steve Bruce at Hull, and I think it was January 2013 he was signed permanently. So good. Not if I don't say so myself, good decent-ish football knowledge on my part to get that right. As far as what about the other two? The other two, sorry, because they were both signed last summer, I believe. Seb Larson and Fraser Campbell. Have they featured very much?
Fraser Campbell was, by the way, a brilliant free agent signing. I was very happy with that business. I think he's a great championship striker. Fortunately, he hasn't played as much as he'd like to have because he's been injured. He's been a bit injured this season. He keeps on playing for a month and then he'll get injured and be out for a month and then play for a month, be out for a month, etc. That's what it feels like to me anyway. But I think he's back fit, so he will be playing this weekend. I think he's a very good championship striker. If he'd been playing, if he played every game for this season, which he would have, had not been for injury, he'd be in double figures by now. But he hasn't been able to. He hasn't had enough chance to play for us, and I love him to bits, to be honest, because obviously he treated us poorly in the past. He loved winding us up, and he came back. He clearly had a bit of grovelling to do, and he's back and he's endeared himself to the fans again. He scored the winner for us at Barnsley away, which ended our streak of nearly a year without an away win. Over a calendar year without an away win, and he's a really good striker, and we all really like him. He's always happy. He seems to really try. He always gives it his all, and he's a touch of quality. You know, I think he's good enough for the Premier League potentially, and I'm happy that he's with us. I don't know how Sunderland fans are going to receive him.
See, I don't think there's any ill feeling towards Fraser Campbell with Sunderland fans. I think Fraser Campbell was of the opinion that I think he was just too injury prone. That was the thing. That was probably why we let him go. I think with them because he went to Cardiff obviously when he left. As far as you mentioned the free agent bit. I mean, I was sort of someone I was clamouring for us to get in the summer because I felt like he probably has a bit of pace about him. He's certainly not slow, or he shouldn't be. He's probably a decent Championship striker for his level, and he was available for free. I mean, just left a Premier League club, so I didn't see the harm in going for him on a free. And obviously, you've snapped him up, and I don't know whether he's fit or not. But even an injured Fraser Campbell is probably better than what we've got up front at the moment. So
he's a great finisher. He's a great finisher. If you give him the ball on a one-on-one and completely calm, he'll just strike it. He's clearly he's been injury hit, I think, for quite a few years now, but he's still got that predatory instinct that, not every striker has. Some strikers, you could sometimes think, how are they missing that, etc. And they sometimes get a bit nervous when they're one-on-one. Even the top quality strikers, we see it with people like Alvaro Morata at Chelsea. Sometimes he's in a pressure situation. Campbell's just very calm and collected in those situations.
I remember you. I think it was a goal he scored against Reading. I believe. I think he put you 1-0 up at Reading, and I think I remember looking at the goal he scored there. I remember it was sort of a tighter angle, but it was almost like a one-on-one versus the goalkeeper, and he just calmly slotted it away. If I remember rightly, looking at the film.
The keeper's legs, lovely finish. He does that. He scores really good goals, really consistently. He scored a great one at Sheffield Wednesday. He picked it up, did a few feints at the edge of the box, managed to buy himself a few yards into the box, and just clicked straight in the top corner. He's a real quality player.
Please tell me he's not in the squad then for Saturday.
I think he is, but I'm not sure he's back to full fitness. I think he might only be a sub.
Oh, I'll tell you what. This has got 1-0 Fraser Campbell, Hull winner, sub-appearance thing all over it. I can just sense it now. I'm sure much to your delight, but I'm just sort of dreading at the thought of it now. What about the last player we mentioned in that trio, Seb Larsson? Last time we spoke, I think people said that Seb Larsson was at Sunderland, Seb Larsson was a hot and cold player. You could definitely tell the effort was there, but towards the end, his lack of quality, certainly for the Premiership, definitely did show. How's he done since arriving at Hull this season?
I think it's quite funny that you describe him as a hot and cold player, maybe, because for us, he hasn't set the world alight, but at the same time, he hasn't really put a foot wrong. He's pretty much a 6 out of 10 every week. He's definitely, I think you're probably right. I don't think he should be anywhere near the Premier League, but at the same time, I think for a centre mid to a lower half Championship team, which is what we are right now, he's a good player. He's pretty, he works hard. He plays nice passes. He's just a good player. He's a 6 out of 10. He's very consistent. The only time he's put a foot wrong, unfortunately, was when we were at Derby away earlier on this season. We earned a penalty, 1-0 down, to make it 1-1. He stepped up to take it, quite well known for his free kicks and penalties, and blasted it over the bar.
Yeah, I remember that.
Target.
I was at a quiz. No, I was saying I was at a quiz that I was at a quiz that night, and I remember watching the highlights of it on Sky. And safe to say it was absolutely horrendous spot kick, which he is known to score them. But actually, no, he's missed one for us at Wolves a few years ago. I remember that was Martin O'Neill's first game.
Free kicks wise, he seems to have gained a reputation pretty good at set pieces.
Well,
but that penalty miss was we just turned away I was turned away in disgust when he did that. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, well, what I was saying was I did say to you last time. I think his free kicks was. There certainly used to be his first season for us, which was 11-12 when we signed him. He was quite good at taking set pieces. I think I might have said this last time we spoke, actually. He's quite good at taking set pieces then, but since then, for whatever, I think if people found him out, or people found out where his free kicks were going to go, the curve he was going to put on them, or whatever. But since then, his free kicks just couldn't beat the first man. So I don't know whether it's that different, whether being at Hull, or I don't know is he seen as a regular starter for you, or is he? I mean, I imagine he probably is, given what you've just said, 6 out of 10 every week. Or does he tend to appear sub appearances now and again with an occasional start? How often does he play?
I think with a fully fit squad, he'd. I don't know. He's one of them players. He's definitely not the first name on the team sheet, but he'll usually start, but you wouldn't be surprised to see him on the subs bench either. He's I'm happy to see him doing well because I did say a lot when we signed him, a lot of Sunderland fans saying, "Oh, he won't be very good for us," but he's definitely a championship quality player. I just question it. I feel like sometimes depending on whether we're home and away, if we want a ball winning centre mid, because we've also got Kevin Stewart and David Myler who are more ball winning centre mids. If we want to play someone like that, if we've got a away game, for example, and we want to dig in, then we might start then, rather than if we're at home against a weaker side, we might play him. And it depends on what kind of style we're looking to play, I think.
I think if you're gonna, I think that if Larson, I think for example, in the very likely event when you go in front on Saturday, Larson's a very good substitution to have when you're actually winning a game because he's got limitations undoubtedly as a player, but one thing you can't question, he has got the attitude and desire for it. He will press, he will run into the ground. He's a very horrible player sometimes to play against. He tries to win free kicks all the time. But he will attempt to get in your face. So if Larson does come back and he's in the squad, you'll know better than me. If he does though, then that's the sort of thing I wouldn't necessarily anticipate Sunderland trying to break down.
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking about the free players there, and it's just making me think. And I'm not sure whether you feel like this with Sunderland, that we've got some really good players in our team. We've got some really good individuals: Face Campbell, Sebastian Larson, Jackson Irvine, Michael Dawson, just Cameron Krasicki, just to name a few. And I don't quite understand how we're where we are in the table, to be quite honest.
Yeah, well, right now, well, put it this way: the squad right now that we've got, I think the defence we've got should be doing a lot better. I think it should because we've got Adam Matthews, Brian Oviedo, Tyus Browning, and John O'Shea. Now, you look at Matthews, albeit it has been with Celtic, but he has been able to play against Champions League opponents before. Oviedo's obviously been with Everton, very well prestigious club now. Same with Browning, obviously came on loan, and O'Shea. However, he is getting on, and I would prefer not to see O'Shea anywhere near the Sunderland team at the moment. It's not his fault that we haven't replaced him properly. He's had a long career at Man United. He's won title after title. I would still think, even at his age, he should be able to do the basics in the second tier of English football. So already, on paper, that should be a good championship back four for me. However, at the moment, we've got no spine because the instant, and this is one thing if I was Nigel Adkins, I would say, get the first goal. That's literally all the tactic you have to do. Get the first goal. The crowd will turn. I've got mixed feelings on that at the moment, but the crowd will turn. Quite understandably, because you mentioned the long away record with over a calendar year without winning away. You probably saw that if we hadn't beat Fulham a week before Christmas, we would have gone over a calendar year without winning a league game at home. In fact, winning a game. In fact, winning a game.
I thought my eyes were deceiving me when I first read that. I couldn't understand, and I'm sure you can't either. I don't understand how a team can't win one home game. I thought our away record was bad. I couldn't believe that record when I saw it. How many games you'd gone without. And what was more astonishing to me was that you'd won away a few times. You'd won away, but you couldn't win at home.
Yeah, and that's the thing really, because for me, the whole of last year, the only decent teams really that came to the Stadium of Light last calendar year, 2017, were Tottenham, Liverpool, Man City, and Man United. They were the only four decent sides really. Maybe Stoke and Southampton pushing it possibly, but the rest of them, we had, half of them were in the Championship for goodness sake. In the Premier League, you had Bournemouth who'd come up at that point. I think hadn't won an away game for God knows how long. Swansea who was struggling, Burnley who hadn't won an away game at that point. You've got some really average teams coming up here. West Ham who were struggling, and I know that the perception was that we weren't very good, and that's probably fair enough. But to not beat any of those teams and to not win before Fulham, to have not beaten any teams I look at Bolton and Millwall. Millwall, particularly when they came up here, I thought they were cack. I thought they were absolutely terrible. And Sheffield United, as much as I'm hoping that they go up, it would be quite class to see them in the Premier League. When they came up here, I thought they were atrocious. The difference was they just wanted it more. And I looked at them and thought, these are in the top six and we're near the bottom. Like, goodness me, come on.
But look, they came to our place, we drew them 0-0, and I thought there was nothing special. How are these second in the Championship? I thought this is a bang average team. And we drew 0-0, unfortunately, with them because Michael Hector, our centre-back, missed a tap-in from 2 yards out. But I do feel like there's a lot. There's not even this Championship League this season is very competitive, but there's not actually that much quality in it. That's why Wolves are blowing it away because they are levels above everyone else. They're the only real quality team in the Championship this season.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think everybody's been saying it. Apart from Wolves aside, I can't. This is why it frustrates me that we've been near the bottom of the league because I think some teams we've lost to have been absolutely horrendous. I mean, look, we lost 5-2 at Ipswich. I mean, obviously Ipswich are certainly, I think, below the playoffs, not far below it, or they're certainly at least comfortably in the top half at the moment. You've got the teams that came up. Sheffield United are in the top six. Fair play, good on them for that. But you've got Bolton, Millwall, who are struggling. We've lost twice to Barnsley, who I didn't think were anything special. I mean, when I went to Barnsley away at the start of the season, they were they were a really, really poor team that I watched. But the difference was they fully deserved to beat us because they beat us 3-0, but they wanted it a lot more than we did. And there's the top of my head, there's a few other ones that we've lost to that I think are just bang average ordinary. I mean, even we lost 4-0 at Cardiff, who were meant to be one of the better sides, and I thought they just outpowered us physically. That was it. There wasn't really anything exciting about them, but I suppose that's Neil Warnock for you. He does the job. But I guess we're trying to talk ourselves out of the therapy session of the game, aren't we? Because you mentioned yourself. We'll get back on track. You said yourself you're not really that optimistic. Trust me, I think I will be less optimistic than you are, and we're the home team. That's saying something. I mean, you said yourself you would take a draw, right? In the well, I would say the aim you should at least aim for a point, but I would imagine you'd be disappointed if you came away from the weekend and didn't at least attempt to come out and win the game because I think you've got this is your best chance than ever to win a game. I think.
A lot of the thing is for me, we started off the season quite mid-table. And I'm thinking we can push on, and then we went in a bad run of form and we slid down the table a bit, and then we had two away games in a row, Norwich City and Barnsley. We went to Norwich. I went to this one and I was thinking this we can finally end the run, and we scored an early goal and we held on all game. Really resilient performance for a Slutsky Hull City. It was amazing. Just block after block, defending incredibly well. Fortunately, we had a red towards the end. And then they scored in the 90 plus fifth minute, and it was just horrific. But after the after the hideous feeling of losing or drawing, conceding a late equaliser goes, I'm thinking, you know what, we've gone to an okay Norwich side, we've held our own, and we've played better than them, and we've been unlucky not to take 3 points. We go to Barnsley away next week. We beat them, and I think, you know what, 4 points from 2 away games. We really should have had 6. This is the turning point. We're going to push on for the playoffs now.
Fair enough.
Since then, it didn't happen. It went the other way. We started going down the table, and I still kind of can't believe we're as low as we are because I feel like we're a better team than that. I feel like we're a better team. I feel like we've been unlucky at points in the season, but at the same time, I still think my optimistic me is going, you know what, this is just a little bit bad form. We'll pick up some form, we'll finish 14th, and we'll have no worries. That's the optimistic part of me. But a lot of pessimistic Hull City fans are saying, we're in real trouble here. We're not going to spend any money in January because the Allams don't spend any money on us and sell all our players dirt cheap. Robertson to Liverpool for 8 million, for example, when he's their new messiah. I think we could get a lot more. And a lot of people are saying we're not going to spend any money this January. We're in real trouble here. We could go down. We're losing to bang average teams. I'm staying optimistic. I still think we're not going to go down. But if we lose to you this weekend, I think that will actually make me fully compute we're actually in a relegation scrap here. We're fully in a relegation battle. If we lose to you, that would be catastrophic for Hull City. Simply because that would bring us to the reality of, oh God, we're actually in a full-on relegation battle here.
Right, well, I can promise you we won't win. I know I said last time Vaughan wouldn't ever score, so you could probably ignore that if you wish to, but I honestly would be astonished if we beat you at the weekend. I think it's obviously a game from our perspective we should be looking to win. We need to win. A draw would certainly be obviously much better for you than it would be for us. No, you forgot to mention you've got by far and away, I think, the best goal difference out of every team down the bottom, and I think that will come in handy for you at the end of the season. As much as we obviously, as a Sunderland fan, I look for your result, I look for Barnsley's, Bolton's, Birmingham's, Burton's, and all that. I will. You can quote me on this, and you'll probably hope I'm right at the end of the season. I would be astonished if you went down. I think of all the teams, you're probably the strongest one down there, and I think you will. I can't see you getting relegated. Everyone looks for the result, but I look at Hull's and I just think I'm not that bothered when you win or you draw because I just don't see you getting relegated at the end of the season. I think eventually you will pull clear.
That's what I'm hoping. I keep on saying to my friends, and this is an incredibly arrogant thing to say, but I'm sure you feel it as well. We're a relegated Premier League side. I keep on saying, and this is the worst thing a team in relegation, but I can say there, it's true to me that we're too good to go down. My logic is that we have got too many good individuals in that team to allow us to go down. And while that has been often the cry of teams fans as they get relegated, I do genuinely believe that the optimistic side of me believes that eventually we'll hit a patch of form and we'll pull away into 14th. And even then, that'll be a poor season for us. But for me, there's reassurance that I'm looking at Burton and I'm thinking they're goners. I'm thinking they're down. Fair play to them for doing what they've done on such a meagre budget. And I think Nigel Clough's done a good job with them. You know, I think they're going down. I think Birmingham are going down. I don't see them staying up. I know they've pulled off miracles in the past, but I genuinely think they're absolutely dire. Unless they sack Cotterill soon, I think they're going down. And then that leaves one more spot. And
you can say it's Sunderland if you want. To be honest, I wouldn't be surprised.
I think Sunderland, unfortunately, might do it. I'm quite surprised because I didn't think Sunderland. I thought they'd finish mid-table this season, but I think, unfortunately, you might fill that third spot.
It wouldn't. To be honest, I mean, obviously, as you said yourself, we're also a side that's just gone down from the Premier League, and I still insist we went down in the most pathetic manner last season because you at least went down with a bit of fight about it, whereas obviously we went down ridiculously. You know, like we just folded.
Relegating us last season.
Well, to be honest, right, I still believe that your logic about the whole individual players. For me, last season there were too many internationals and individual players to say that side should have finished on 24 points. It might still have gone down. Don't get me wrong. If it had tried every game, it may still have gone down. It probably would have done. But I'm prepared to bet you it wouldn't have been as one-sided. It wouldn't have been as, you know, it wouldn't. If we had a bit more of a fight in us, it would have been a lot closer than it was. As far as now goes, I mean, a month ago I would have said the same thing. I said this frustrates me that we're down here. We should have too many players in this team to actually go and be relegated. But the fact that we're a relegated Premier League team, we're bottom of the Championship. And let's be honest, for a club the size of Sunderland, if we drop down into League One, I mean, I wasn't that bothered about relegation from the Premier League at the time because I felt I'm sick of getting beat every week, and I thought, right, we'll win some games in the Championship.
We'll win some games in the Championship. I thought that too.
Yeah, and now if we go down to League One, I'm sorry, that would break me as a football fan. Seeing Sunderland in the third tier of English football, I'm sorry, I would take some recovering from that.
Establishing yourself as the Premier League team, that's. I tell you, I do think if you go down, I genuinely do think you'll bounce back up as champions. I do think you'll come back, and you'll win some games. So, especially if you're champions, I think you'll go straight back up.
We said that last season, but I'll hold you to that. In a year's time, when in about 18 months' time, we're pissing it in League One, hopefully like 20 points clear. I'll say thanks to Dmitiri Colville for this. He said this was going to happen. He's the new Messiah. Thanks very much, mate. You know,
I'll tell you that I do think if you do go down, despite not having, I'm sure Sunderland don't have the biggest budget, but I think you'll probably still have the same kind of budget as most League One teams, and you will have the pull of, some of these League One players that are playing for, I don't know, whatever League One team they're playing for, like a Scunthorpe, etc. They might rather play for Sunderland at the Stadium of Light and a historically bigger club than their club. You'll be able to attract better players, and I do think, and like I said, if you go up next season as champions, you'll win and you'll have a bit of fun, I reckon. And I reckon that'll raise morale at the club.
Yeah, but I probably would agree. I mean, obviously, I hope it doesn't come to going down to League One, but I know what you mean. I think if we could, the mentality would suddenly change because you've probably had it not as bad as us to this extent, but in terms of a losing mentality, Sunderland, unfortunately, have just been used to constantly getting beat. Let's be honest, of some shite opposition, but it doesn't help the fact that whoever you play, if you keep getting beat every week, it keeps on cropping up every time you go a goal down because you think, oh, here we go again. But look, either way, hopefully.
I'm really surprised. Sorry, can I just really quickly say?
No, go on.
I'm really surprised Simon Grayson didn't do a great job with you. I'm thinking he's a brilliant appointment. I'm thinking, he's used to. What he's done is he's managed to establish Preston in the Championship on a small budget. He's very solid. He did a great job at Preston. They finished like 9th or 8th every year, which is good for them. And I'm thinking he'd do a great job at you. And I'm really, really surprised that it didn't work out for him.
Well,
and I hope Chris Coleman. And I'm thinking Chris Coleman as well. It should work for him because Chris Coleman, I think, is a good manager.
I'd agree. I think he is. I was astonished. I was amazed we got him. I mean, as a club, I don't think it should be an amazing because I think we should be able to attract that position anyway. But in our current situation, I was amazed we were able to attract him to the club. I mean, I'll quickly touch on Grayson. I think the problem with Grayson was that his tactical awareness wasn't that good, because he kept on playing players in certain positions that were questionable, and I think Grayson was known primarily as to being a defender when he was playing. And what I found an issue was we were constantly letting in goal after goal after goal, and the same mistakes would keep happening every week, and there was nothing being done to really fix that problem. Where if you look at Coleman, however bad it looks at the moment, we have kept like 4 clean sheets in the last 9 or something daft like that. We got a 0-0 draw at Wolves. That's no easy feat given how they are for this league.
That's a brilliant result. I'm sure that give you hope for the rest of the season.
Well, it should have done. But I mean, obviously, and we were down to 10 men for over a third of the match. But it depends, because like you yourselves, I'd be amazed if you had less money to spend than us, because we're, as you know, the situation at Sunderland well documented. We are in a financial difficulty, as an understatement to say the least. We can barely bring any loans in. We were linked with Jonathan Walters from Burnley. He's now injured out for an operation, so that's going to rule him out of coming to us. Ben Woodburn, we were linked with him. Liverpool reportedly don't want to let him go. Don't know why. Let him go out on loan. So that leaves you thinking, who are we going to bring in? We've got Chris Martin we're looking at from Derby. But, he's bound to be better than what we've got. But, it just frustrates me, because I just think, I'm sure you feel the same way about Hull. If we got it right, what could be achieved? That's the annoying thing. And I think just for once to have a good season would be nice.
Honestly, I still feel like we shouldn't have gone down last season. I don't understand that. I really thought we were safe. I really thought and that's a stupid thing to say, because we were in such peril. But after we'd beaten Watford, the character that we showed to win that, I just thought, we've done the hard part. We're not going down now. I thought Marcus Silva is Jesus. I think we're staying up. And to think now that instead of getting battered every week in the Championship, we could get battered in the Premier League. I wish we were just getting battered in the Premier League. We're going to be getting battered one way. I'd rather it be by Man United and Chelsea and Leicester and people like that than
Barnsley
getting beat away at Bolton.
Yeah.
And I tell you, you may not have any money to spend, but I reckon we've probably got the same. I bet both managers have got the same transfer budget, because we are rolling in it. Because we keep on getting these players real cheap. Maguire and Robertson are great examples. Maguire we got from Sheffield United cheap. Robertson we got from Scotland cheap. And we made 25 million off them, which was, again, I don't think it was enough. I think we could have got 25 million for Maguire. I think we could have got 15 million plus for Robertson. But we are definitely, we have to be cash rich. We have to be cash rich, because we keep on selling these players for big profits, and the money's just not getting invested back. We're going out and buying budget options. We're going out and learning players. We're just doing things the cheapest way possible.
I can imagine that'd be very frustrating for you, though, because if you know you've got the money and you're not spending it, you spend a bit. To be honest, getting out of this, you don't need to spend a great deal of money to get out of the Championship. I think if you spend about between 10, 15 million, if you get it right, and if you get into a team, you could easily go up.
They don't need to spend the money.
Sorry?
You're looking at 35 million for that Silva from AC Milan. Spend, and I don't know, a quarter of that, and you're looking at a good player for a Championship team. It's ridiculous, and it is frustrating. And obviously, I don't want to rub your nose in it, because I bet you'd rather have the money and be in a financially safe situation. But it's infuriating that we've made an absolute ton on profit on players leaving the club constantly. And we also sold Klukas as well to Swansea for 16 million. We sold him for. Where's that money going? Where's it going? After that happened, Ihambalan bought himself a new Lamborghini. So it's frustrating. It's really frustrating.
Yeah, I mean,
I'd love it if they could actually spend some money.
I mean, to be honest, I think you are right. I would much rather we were in a financial situation, but that would frustrate me more, knowing that you can do it and that they just don't. That's what I felt Ellis Shaw, our owner, was doing for a long time. But obviously, it's come out now. Someone said in a local radio station the other day that if we spent, I think apparently it's over 3 seasons, we're not allowed to make more than over £80 million loss, or whatever the exact figures are. I can't quite remember. And over the last 2 seasons, the last season and the year before, both times we're in the Premier League, bearing in mind, when the new TV deal was coming in, we still managed to make a combined loss of 60 million. So that already leaves us not very much wiggle room to play with, in terms of only being able to make a 25 million loss this year. Plus, on top of that, you've got a massive drop in revenue, albeit the wage bill will have gone down. We made 30 million from Jordan Pickford, but so I can see now why
I'm surprised that didn't balance the books. I mean, because you made a lot of money on Pickford.
We did, but I think at the same time, it's just the crippling of the debt. We've still owe money from previous deals as well. Because, as you know, probably a lot of transfer figures and payments are done in installments these days. So,
Yeah.
we've allowed, and I'm not a big fan of that. I'd rather you just be able to pay the deal off and get it done, because then you
Jack
don't have it crippling you later on. So
I can't believe, I feel so sorry for you as a club having to pay £70,000 a week to Jack. Well, that's astonishing.
don't get me started.
Honestly, I would. I'm sorry for being. I'm just. I'm even before player inflation. I don't know. And I hear you're apparently in contract talks with him to get rid of his contract. So.
Well, the situation there is that the Sunderland have offered him a deal. I think it's to tear up his contract, but that would require Rodwell basically walking away from like 5 million or whatever it is. That what the remainder of his contract, because he's out of contract.
It's not his fault. Sunderland have offered him.
Oh yeah, I mean, to be fair, if you looked at it on a human level, who would walk away from that sort of money? Who would walk away from?
Yeah.
If you sell out the rest of your contract, I mean, to be honest, but where the sympathy I think we lose him with is that he's got over £12 million in earnings or something along those lines since he joined Sunderland in 2014. So he's been with us 3.5 seasons now, and he's bled the club dry when there's a lot of people's jobs on the line. In fact, I mean, there would have been a few people lose their jobs anyway from last season. But the fact he is probably comfortably the highest paid earner in the Championship, I would imagine. He's got to be at least.
I'm thinking 70 grand a week is like Premier League wages.
Yeah, exactly.
It's ridiculous. Like a top Premier League team. Like you're not getting. I doubt Burnley who are sixth. I doubt they're paying anyone 70 grand a week.
Yeah, that's the thing, because I'm happy that Burnley are doing well, but you look at their squad and you think they're not exactly household names, but what they have got is a good team spirit and attitude for it. But you look at Rodwell, back to Rodwell though, you think, well, to me, he's just lost the appetite for the game now. Personally, and you're going to think I'm going to be very contradictory here. Sorry, I keep interrupting you. You're going to think I'm very contradictory here, but I'd give him a go on Saturday because we've got no other options, literally, in midfield. We've got Ndong, who's suspended for 3 games, who can piss off as far as I'm concerned. You've got McNair, who's injured. You've got Gibson, injured. The list completely goes. Catamol, injured. You've already got 3 players injured, 1 suspended. But at the same time, Rodwell's just seems to have lost the stomach for it. And the fact he's on 70k a week, he was the only player when we went down to not have a relegation wage cut clause. And I just think, how? He's offered nothing for 3.5 years, and he's on that sort of wages. Why is
he not playing for you right now, though?
Believe me, Dimitri, I wish I knew the answer to that question. I don't.
Is it that easy? I'm saying this with, I'm making quotation marks with my fingers. Is he injured?
Yeah. Well, the perception is that he's made himself unavailable for playing. Apparently, the perception is that he does the training, but apparently he's just unable to. He said, of quotation marks, apparently that he's unable to deal with playing in centre mid. Something along those bollock lines. I can't believe that personally, but
he won't even play for you.
Exactly. Like unless you want to hear me rant about Jack Rodwell for 5 minutes, we best end this conversation because you'll probably get bored. But no, honestly, I defended Rodwell for quite a long time, saying there's a player in there, but I've lost patience with him now. If he was earning it and scoring us the match win, if he was scoring us match winners every week in the Championship, it wouldn't be brought up so much. We wouldn't be talking like this. But obviously, it's the fact we're struggling doesn't help, and the fact he's on 70k a week when we're down to the bare bones in terms of financial fair play, even though we only spent like less than 2 million in the summer. In terms of wages, if you get his wages off the books straight away, that means a massive gap for you to play for Coleman to play with in terms of loans. But obviously, to do that, we need to pay off probably about a few million quids for him to go. And I'd personally rather do that because at least then you can get players in who might be able to help keep us up. But obviously, we haven't got the money to do that. So yeah, yeah. Safety. I mean, this is the thing. It pisses me off when Arsenal fans go on about how much they think they have it bad. I know that Sanchez is likely to go to Man United, and I can imagine that being very frustrating. But try what we have to put up with. I'm sorry.
For thinking that they're. I mean, obviously, being an Arsenal fan, it must be quite sad because they've gone from winning the Premier League and being unbeaten to being fifth, but that's nothing compared to what we have, and Charlton fans and you have, and Blackpool fans have to suffer. It's nothing. But they're playing in the Europa League. They're playing in the European competition. They won the FA Cup. They won the FA Cup 3 times in the past however many years. It's a jerk.
Yeah, I mean, well, they should have lost to you a few years ago. Really, I know you won't want me to remind you of that, but
I mean, in regards to that game, we should have probably bottled the 2-0 lead, but we actually nearly made it 3-0. We had one cleared off the line, and if we make that 3-0, I think that kills the game. I don't think they've got. I think they have the bottle to come back from 2-0, but I don't think if we get 3-0 there, I think it's game over.
I know what you mean.
Even with 60 minutes left.
But even then, on the cup front, you've probably achieved more than we have recently because you've got an FA Cup final at least. But I know what you mean. Like in comparison to what we've got to put up with us, and even you look at one of our clubs in the North East, Hartlepool. I mean, I don't know if you follow them very much, but they're in the conference now, and they're very much on the brink of administration. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And they have it worse than Sunderland, and I know it takes some doing for us to have, and probably Hull as well. It takes a lot to have worse than us, but Arsenal fans, in comparison, still get a lot of world-class players or class players playing for them every week, and you win a lot more games than you don't, and it's like, well, I'd give anything to have that. Obviously, expectations are different, of course they are, but
they're like the fifth in the league. They're not even doing badly. By comparison, but I heard they were singing how shit must you be we're winning away. Well, you're fifth in the league, you know. So not that shit, really.
Exactly.
You still win more than you lose.
Saying that though, how shit must you be winning away? They didn't sing that at Nottingham Forest, so just think you could have been playing Arsenal, couldn't you? Come to think of it.
Yeah.
So
and that's what a lot of people mentioned. It would have been Arsenal. Thank the Lord, maybe Forest beat them because we played Arsenal a ridiculous amount of times in the FA Cup in recent years. We had them in the final, we had them in the third round, we had them in a fifth round. When we didn't just have them in the fifth round, we had a fifth round replay with them as well. So
I remember.
I despise Arsenal more than any of the big clubs. To be honest, I hate Leeds and I hate Scunthorpe and I hate Grimsby and I hate Arsenal.
I'll tell you what. You mentioned Leeds. Actually, we'll quickly try and finish up with the football. You've got Leeds, I think, after I'm looking at your fixtures in the Championship. Obviously, you've got Forest the week after us in the Cup, but you've got Leeds at home after us on the Tuesday night, and after we play you, we've got Birmingham away. So already we've got two. Yeah, we've got. I mean, this game's huge for us in itself, but I think we've put Birmingham away. I think is also good because I still think you will be clear come the end of the season. So although we could really do with winning on Saturday, I don't see it personally. I think Birmingham as well is just as big. And maybe being away from home, the pressure might be off us then slightly. But as far as Saturday goes, we'll each do a prediction. You can say both your heart and your head what you might think will happen. So go for it.
Right, head. Maybe head 1-0 away win. Really scrappy, terrible game of football all around, and we just get a bit lucky and score one. Heart 3-0 away win for us. Because we haven't really battered a team at all in a while, and as arrogant as that sounds, it'd be nice to just batter someone. We scrape wins a lot.
I know. I mean, to be honest, I'd take scraping wins over obviously not having any wins. But I know what you mean. You like to have a comfortable game now and again.
And we don't win away that often either. So if we do win away, it'd be nice to actually comprehensively beat someone away.
If it's going to be anyone, it'll be us. I can assure you. I would say Heart obviously 1-0 Sunderland because I'd like to think we need it really badly. But head 2-0 Hull, Fraser Campbell and Seb Larsson.
I give you away quickly. You can win it. We went away to Bolton on New Year's Day. Terrible game of football. We came close twice. We hit the post and we nearly missed a tapping at the back purse. It was a terrible game of football. They didn't threaten apart from that. They scored one goal and it was from a free kick, Gary Madden free kick, and then they just defended the rest of the game and won 1-0. So if you score a set piece and potentially defend it, you could win a hideous game of football. And the weather doesn't like it's going to be great either, so it doesn't like it's going to lend itself to an attacking game of free-flowing football. I think it may be a very scrappy, terrible game for the neutral, potentially, and that's why I went for a 1-0 away win for us.
I can. Yeah, well, I mean, to be honest, like I said, I think you're much more likely to win this game than we are, and I know we're each. I think we're like trying to. It sounds like we're trying to console each other and saying, "Oh no, you'll win, you'll win." No, trust me. Sunderland, for whatever reason, still have a massive problem playing at the Stadium of Light, and I think, honestly, I'll hold you to this now. You can also say this: if you get the first goal, the worst you will do is get a draw. There's no way we will come. There's no way we will come back to win from going 1 goal down. The crowd will turn. Your players will grow in confidence, and it's like a graveyard at the minute playing at Sunderland, because there's literally the atmosphere is, and off what's happening off the pitch as well isn't helping matters. So I'll be amazed if you lose to us on Saturday. I'll be absolutely amazed. If you're going to win any game, it's going to be this one. I know I've said it quite a few times.
I think that if you score first, then I think we'll only draw. I think we have to score first to win, because I don't think we're that good. When we go down, our heads drop a lot, and we really, really struggle. And like when we went 1-0 down too early on this season, you defended it for the rest of the year, and it wasn't until the 80th minute or something that we made it 1-1. So potentially, it works both ways. But yeah.
Well, we will find out. There might be no goals. It might be a 0-0 draw, which is obviously a much. It's obviously.
Would be, I think, the worst game for the neutral. I'm sure if you said to a neutral, watch this, they'd rather watch paint dry than watch a 0-0.
I don't think there'll be many people watching it anyway, to be honest. But I know what you mean. To be honest, I mean, a draw's a much better result for you than it is for us, because we desperately have to win. But right, guys. Well, look, thank you, Dmitiri, anyway, for coming on. It's been a nice little moaning session for about 55 minutes or however long we've been on for. It's been class, man.
It's been great. Thank you for having me on.
So, no worries. Always a pleasure. Right. Obviously, I don't wish Hull luck on Saturday. I'm sure you don't wish Sunderland luck. But afterwards, trust me, I think you'll pull clear. I think you'll be fine.
It'd be nice for both teams to say
it would be. I think you will. Whether we do or not is a different question. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching or putting up with watching my face or listening to us. Well, listen to Dimitri's all right. Listen to me is probably pathetic. But either way, guys, thanks very much. Thanks, Dimitri, and how are the lads for Saturday?